Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Well Beyond the Arc. I'm Manoli,
And I'm Montana.
and we're going to be talking NBA basketball with you guys for the next 60 minutes or so, as always. Montana, how the hell are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. You got a nice background there in Hawaii. I mean, I can't even tell you're in Hawaii with that background.
It's a whole different background. Every episode, I'll try to find a different one. That's the goal. Just switch it up each time. Keep people on their toes.
I think that's going to be a new segment of Well Beyond the Arc. Where's Montana today? Where is he recording from today? Well, look, folks, thanks for joining us as always. We appreciate you guys listening, watching wherever you may be. Welcome to those on YouTube, Facebook Live, iHeartRadio, Spotify if you're catching us later on, Twitch, everything. If Hello, hello, hello to you. We got some big news going on after kind of the dog days of the NBA summer going by. We do have a lot of news to get to. Well, one piece in particular. We'll talk about the NBA's offseason winners and losers and things of that nature, and if whether or not Trader Danny has struck again. And Montana is, I can tell he's feeling good coming off of a 5 for 5 in NBA player from last week. So he's going to make it two. He's going to try to make it two in a row this week. But before we get started and all that fun, make sure if you guys haven't done so already, hit that like button. And also, if you haven't subscribed to the Yankee and the Brit Sports Network, what are you waiting for? Especially with the NFL coming up, the boys are going to have a lot of good stuff on the NFL coming up. The season kicks off here in just a couple of days, not even a week away. So very exciting, and a lot of MMA stuff and a lot of good content as always. So make sure you guys subscribe. But we're here to talk NBA, and there's no bigger news this week, Montana, in the NBA than the blockbuster trade between the Utah Jazz and the Cleveland Cavaliers of all teams. Donovan Mitchell not going to the New York Knicks like we both thought, but he's on his way and packing his bags for Cleveland. And I hope he thinks Cleveland's cool right now, because that's what he'll be for the next couple of years, at least under contract. And an exciting deal that basically all Utah sent was Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland. And Utah got back Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, who I really liked for the Mavericks, but he ended up signing a 4-year, $72 million deal as part of the deal. A number of draft picks, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Drew Carey's house, all that good stuff. So, Montana, first of all, when you got the notification on your ESPN app or whichever apps you got them on, what was your first reaction to Donovan Mitchell going to Cleveland?
Well, actually, my first notification was from, I think it was from you. That's how I found out, is you broke the news while I was working. I looked at my phone. So I didn't see all the ESPN note. I didn't get any notifications. I had all mine turned off. So my first, knowledge of that was actually from you. And I did a double take. I'll say that right off the bat. I did a double take. I think the biggest reason I did a double take was me and you had talked about how we thought he could maybe go to another team, but we never. I don't know about you, but I did not think the Cavs were one. I didn't think that that was a player that they were going to go for. Not because Donovan Mitchell's not talented. I just didn't know if that was going to be a move that they would be able to pull off and pull off successfully. But they pulled it off, and they kept some of their most solid players from last season, the last few seasons. So I'm not going to say they robbed Utah, because Utah definitely set themselves up, but the Cavs pulled off one of the best late off-season moves I think we have ever seen. I think that Knicks fans are punching themselves right now. They're punching the air. They're
Oh,
probably their biggest move this summer was not a big move. So the Knicks fans are probably not too happy, but if there are any of them even out there still. But no, I'm just kidding. But anyway, so yeah, I would say that that was a good move for the Cavs. I think the Cavs set themselves up for the future. And I don't know if I believe in all of the hype, and I accept all of the. I don't know if I'd call them a contender, but we're going to see them jump up to a fourth or fifth seed comfortably, I think, this season, because I think they just have that core. And then you add a star like Mitchell, and it's going to be off to the races for those fellas.
yeah, I saw the notification. Yeah, I was floored. I mean, we all thought it was only a matter of time that he was going to go to the Knicks, but I really think that the Utah front office, led by CEO of basketball operations. By the way, what the hell is a CEO of basketball operations? No other team has that. But anyway, Danny Ainge and general manager Justin Zanuck. Uh, I happen to think that they purposely didn't send him to New York because that's exactly what Donovan Mitchell wanted. I think they did it out of spite. But you know what? I think he's going into a pretty damn good situation, right? Let me give you the potential starting lineup for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Darius Garland made the All-Star team last year. Donovan Mitchell at your backcourt. Karis LeVert, he's averaged about 20 points per game, or at least close to it. High-level scorer as your 3 guy. Evan Mobley, who the guy's going to be a stud, absolute stud. Jared Allen, that's your potential starting 5. Not to mention you have Kevin Love, a vet, 6'10", stretch 4 coming off the bench who can shoot it. Ricky Rubio coming back from offseason, I think he has an ACL surgery. He's your backup point guard. What a backup point guard to have in Ricky Rubio, which I think that's going to be a role he's suited for best. They signed Robin Lopez, Sideshow Bob himself, to be a backup center. So their 4 and 5 are going to be deep. And then you have Cedi Osman, who started for the Cavs parts of the last couple of seasons. He's basically your 9th guy right now. That's your Cleveland Cavaliers right now. But what's even crazier, Montana, is the East, and we're going to get into this a little bit later on, but the East is just stacked, right? My initial reaction was like Cleveland, but after dissecting it, it makes sense. And the fact that, like you said, they didn't have to give up a Darius Garland. They didn't have to give up an Evan Mobley in this trade. They got to keep their core pieces and add Donovan Mitchell. Wow. And they have Kevin Love's contract coming off the books next year, so give it to Kobe Altman, man. He did himself a great job over here. And Cleveland, the Drew Carey show back in the day, the part of the chorus of the theme song was Cleveland rocks. Right now, Cleveland's rocking, that's for sure. And, our title of the podcast is "You Think Cleveland is Cool?" An homage to former Bulls center Joakim Noah sarcastically asking the media if they thought Cleveland was cool. Right now, Cleveland's pretty cool, man. I don't know. My head's still spinning on this.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't think, a move that people expected. I would have even maybe had the Lakers pulling something off over the Cavs. And I didn't have the Lakers doing this. I didn't have the Lakers getting Mitchell. I didn't think there was any chance, but I still would have put them above the Cavs. But I think that this Cavs team has set themselves up. I think they'll be a similar caliber team of this last season's Bulls. I think they'll be a similar caliber team to that. So pretty, upper mid-level East, a team that makes the playoffs but can't get it done in the playoffs. That's kind of what I see them doing. So I think it was a great pickup. And I know that there was some talk about the Cavs maybe going for, and this was not super serious, but this was way back at the beginning of the offseason when there were the rumors that LeBron wasn't happy with the Lakers and wanted out within the next year. People were saying, wouldn't it be great to have him come back to Cleveland? I would say no matter how diehard of LeBron fans that are back in Cleveland, they would rather have a player like Mitchell, and they would rather have a player like Mitchell over a lot of other players because you've got a pretty young guy that has a lot of career left and really hasn't had a lot of injury problems, hasn't had a lot of media problems. He's a pretty unproblematic, talented star, and that's the exact kind of star that Cleveland needs to take them to that next level.
Low
And with him
maintenance.
there,
Yep.
you're probably going to get a couple more, upper level role players or mid-level stars within the next few seasons. So Cleveland is going to build themselves one hell of a basketball team around Mitchell and around, I'd say Mitchell and Mobley are those 2 guys that it's going to be built around. And, you have Garland, you have other players, but Mobley and Mitchell, I think, are the 2 key pieces here that the Cavs are looking at. So I think we're going to see a scary East team.
Absolutely. Another initial reaction I had, and you mentioned that you thought that the Cavs are going to be a 4 or 5 seed comfortably. My another initial reaction I have was, in a way, and I'm not saying this is apples to apples, a comparison here, but in a way, Donovan Mitchell is being traded to a team whose starters kind of remind me a little bit of the Utah Jazz. Now, Cleveland Cavs starting 5 that I mentioned, potential starting 5 that is, much more talented on paper, I think. But think about it. You got, in Utah, he just left Mike Conley Jr. He was a former All-Star point guard. I think he made the All-Star team just once, but he was still a former All-Star point guard. He was the 2, Donovan Mitchell was. You have Bogdan Bogdanovic, who high-scoring small forward, borderline all-star. You had Rudy Gobert, shot blocker. You have Jared Allen, who's a shot blocker type of thing. A little bit more athletic than Rudy Gobert, in my opinion. The difference is Evan Mobley versus a Joe Ingles or a Royce O'Neal, something like that. But eerily similar that you have a shot blocking big man who's more of a traditional center in an NBA that's going away from the traditional center. The other part I thought about was what Utah got back, right? They didn't get Evan Mobley, like we said. They didn't get Darius Garland. What they did get back, and the two headliners here are Lauri Markkanen, decent scoring forward, can shoot, and Colin Sexton, who's coming off a torn meniscus, he was out the last season, but he's a 20-point game scorer when healthy, right? I couldn't help but think, and I wrote a blog on this as well. We'll talk about that in a second. Because Danny Ainge is now the CEO of basketball operations for the Utah Jazz, I can't help but think that this trade had Danny Ainge's name all over it. Like, did he fleece the Cleveland Cavaliers was a question that was going through my mind. But at the same time, Cleveland just got Donovan Mitchell, made their team so much better. Utah got back two solid players, starters, and three first-round draft picks. But something tells me, just because of Danny Ainge's history in the front office, I don't know. I have this funny feeling he might have fleeced him. What do you think?
I would say that both teams are walking out of here with different types of winning. I think the Cavs are winning in the sense that you have a team now. You have this team now. I think Ainge is really good. Danny Ainge is it's tricky to describe him with one word. There's so many words. You either love him, you hate him. Even if you love him, you might hate him. So there's a lot of pieces here. The one thing I will say is the Utah Jazz are a team that has needed to rebuild. And it's not just rebuild around Mitchell and Gobert. They tried that. It didn't work. It's rebuild overall. It's you need to get someone other than Mike Conley. You need to build, you need to bring people in, you need to get these guys, you need to throw them in with the big dogs, let them fight, let them earn it, and then as you go, build the team up. I think that the Cavs are definitely not a win now situation because, again, I saw a comment saying that they'll be one and done in the playoffs. I don't see them going past the first or second round. I definitely don't see them going past the second round this season, but I see them comfortably making the playoffs as a fourth or fifth or sixth seed. Do I think they'll go beyond one or two rounds? Absolutely not. I think the East is just beyond stacked now.
Crazy stacked.
It's going to be ridiculous. We might see the best East we have seen since the 90s. We are going to see an East that is just up there, right there with the West, because usually the West is here, the East is here, but now it's more right here. So, and the East is pulling up a little bit now too. They're starting to get a little bit of an edge maybe. So I would say that both teams, won in different ways. I think the Jazz are ready for the next step. They're ready for the future. And they have a front office that I think agrees. They have a group of people that can get an agreement. And I think getting Gobert and getting Mitchell out of there was crucial for the next step, for the next phase of this organization. So I think you can look at it like both. I'm looking at it as both teams won, but I can see what you're saying because I do think there has to be something building up in Utah. There has to be a plan. And there's some type of something going on there. And maybe there'll be more movement. Not now, but maybe there's more movement plan. Maybe there's other things. There's probably some things, behind the scenes that we really don't know with that whole thing.
Sure,
but I would say both teams got out of there with some good stuff. But I would give it to the Cavs right now just because I think they're in a better situation for today. And as basketball fans watching the game, I think we will see that formulate in a different way and quicker than the Utah will play out.
Yeah, you said that you didn't know if there's one word that can describe Danny Ainge. I got one for you, and this is going back to his playing days: jerk face. And I think there's a lot of fans, especially fans that have been basketball fans, NBA fans since the 80s. I think, especially Lakers fans would agree with me since Ainge was a former Celtic. And wow, yeah, I mean, look, and he's got a couple more veterans. If they're going to actually tear this whole thing down and not just reload, he's still got Bojan Bogdanovic on an expiring deal. He can help a team. Mike Conley, vet, I think he's on an expiring contract. He can help a team. Jordan Clarkson, which I find hilarious because the Utah Jazz are coming out with all these brand new uniforms and they're having Jordan Clarkson model them off on Twitter and NBA.com and all this stuff, other stuff. He very well could be a trade chip, even for your Los Angeles Lakers, Montana. But I don't know. I mean, look, those first round picks are probably going to be high round picks from Cleveland, but Danny Ainge is always up to something. You gotta keep an eye on him. And GM Justin Zanuck, which I didn't even know who that was until I researched him for my blog. Yeah, he did a decent job. I mean, he put that together, that Utah Jazz team, and they went as far as they could. But like you said, they got to a certain point. They realized they couldn't go any farther. They knew they had to get rid of Rudy Gobert. They probably didn't want to get rid of Gobert and Mitchell, but why have a malcontent when you have a chance to turn this thing around? And Danny Ainge wants to put his fingerprints all over this franchise, and that's exactly what he's going to do. So anyway, if you guys have time after, check out my blog on the sports page. Go to thesportspageblog.com. The blog posted on September 1st is titled "Did Trader Danny Strike Again?" Trader Danny strikes again. It'll give you a little insight on some of his incidents while he was a player, getting under opponent's skin, but also some of his trades and where he kind of got that Trader Danny mentality and reputation. So it's a good read. Check it out. Sportspageblog.com. Well, we talked about Danny Ainge at length here, but the NBA draft, I think we can just have two teams run the NBA draft for the next 7 years, because between the picks that the Utah Jazz got in this Mitchell trade and the Gobert trade, believe it or not, the Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder each have 15 first round draft picks total in the next 7 years. So when they say the 2023 NBA draft brought to you by Mountain Dew, no, it's going to be the 2023 Utah Jazz Oklahoma City Thunder NBA draft. I mean, Montana, that's just asinine. What do you think of what Sam Presti in Oklahoma City and Danny Ainge / Justin Zanuck have been able to do with accumulating these draft picks?
I don't think we've ever seen this before. I don't think we have seen this type of draft potential lineup for a single team. I think we've seen plenty of teams draft big, sometimes year in year out, but I don't think we've seen teams be initially set up this much than what we're seeing with the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Utah Jazz. Now, I will say, I think that the Thunder are the team that are going to come out on top. If not that we're going head to head, who's going to be, but the fact that the Thunder have Chet, and I know Chet is out. We talked about him a little bit last week. I think that it will be a benefit to him and a benefit to his game and a benefit to Oklahoma for him to be out this season. I know that the fans of the Thunder probably don't agree with me, and of course you don't, because you were excited to see him on the court. But
Sure.
you have Chet, and you're building up, and you have some other talented pieces. The Thunder have been a talented young team since they had Chris Paul a couple seasons back. They were a young and gun, running, athletic, very, very aggressive, impressively fast tempo, fast paced team. So I think that especially the Thunder are going to build something special. I don't want to get ahead of myself, because obviously the Thunder have not had great success since they switched to Oklahoma. Obviously, it's playoff runs, championship run that ended up, ended to the hands of the Heat. But I think that this will be a team that will be built up the way that the Oklahoma City Thunder were originally trying to be built up, with KD, Westbrook, Harden, Ibaka. I think we are going to see a team built up just like that, with the same caliber, if not better caliber of players, win an NBA championship. So if we're talking about the payoff, it's an NBA championship. And I think that at least the Oklahoma City Thunder will get that. Do I think the Jazz will get it, or do I want them to?
Yeah.
I'm not a big Jazz guy for a lot of reasons, especially with Ainge being up there. It's kind of more difficult for me to be too big of a Jazz guy. But I think that both of these teams are building for the future and are building for championship runs within the next 15 years. And I see the Thunder getting it without a doubt, because they already have a team that I think could build up with current players and current, off-season trades and moves. But you add these draft picks, and it's just going to be a young, aggressive, talented roster that's only going to get better. So I definitely think both of these teams are building up, and I think maybe this is the trend. Maybe we're going to start seeing teams follow, and maybe we'll see a team like the Sacramento Kings. God help them. They need to do something. Maybe we'll see them start building up and fit. So I think we're going to start seeing a trend of teams building up like this more often and more frequently. And it's not always great for the league league, because if you have that many draft picks, you can't be having that too many. You can't be having that many wins a season. But that's not always what that goes off of. It can go off of trades and everything else. So I think we'll see a trend, and I think we'll see success from at least one of those two organizations.
Look, they're building up their asset portfolio, right? 15 first round draft picks in the 7 years, in the next 7 years, excuse me, each, not total, each. I agree. Oklahoma City is going to have higher draft picks for the most part. A lot of the draft picks that Utah got back, Minnesota is expected to be better. Late teens, early 20s draft picks. Same with Cleveland, right? However, what Sam Presti's probably banking on is that to be able to use some of those draft picks, if there are that generational talents, and there's only a couple of great guys, as a couple of our viewers and listeners have mentioned here just a second ago. If there's a couple of those guys and you want to go get your guy, you have the draft capital to trade with another team. You can turn that one pick into a couple different picks and a player and things of that nature. So it's not just a matter of just I want to draft 15 guys in the next 7 years. They can turn around and pick and send those guys in a trade and things of that nature. So I don't know. They're definitely they're definitely building up their draft capital and their assets, if you will. It'll be interesting to see, but the NBA draft just got a little bit more boring for me, just knowing that it's basically going to be two teams picking for the next 7 years. So I know what I'll be doing during the NBA draft for the next 7 years. Anyway, we go from the NBA draft to something a little bit more exciting, and it's our favorite game. We are about to play another fun edition of NBA Player Or. If you guys missed last week, you missed a good one. For the second time that we've started playing this game, second time out of 15 times we've played this game, Montana went a perfect 5 for 5. If you
flawless victory.
There it was. So, for those that follow us every week on Well Beyond the Arc, you know how the game is played, but for everybody else, we'll explain the rules anyway. Every week, I give Montana 5 names of folks that have either played in the NBA or have different profession. It could be something as random as was this person in a boy band, famous scientist, all sorts of crazy things, whatever I decide to come up with that day. So if Montana gets the answer to a question correct, you will hear the sound.
Victory!
Thank you, Johnny Drama. I can't talk today, man. If Montana gets the question incorrect, you will hear this sound. All right, we'll see if I can undo my tongue and not be tongue-tied through NBA Player Or. Montana, to date, you are 53 out of 75 with your 5 for 5 performance last week. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'd like to go back-to-back 5 for 5s. That'd be a real big accomplishment, but I don't know. It depends on the topic. Every week I'm on the edge of my seat until I know what it is.
Well, this week, don't worry. It's not a European politician or an Asian city or something random. No, we're making it a little bit more simple. This week's topic, it's NBA Player Or famous person from Cleveland, Ohio, to be exact. Now,
Okay.
there is a Cleveland, Mississippi. I don't know anybody that's famous in Cleveland, Mississippi, so we're sticking to Cleveland, Ohio. In honor of the Donovan Mitchell trade to the Cleveland Cavaliers, yes, famous Clevelanders. So we're 5 names, and I like your chances. Let's just get right into it.
All right.
Name number 1, Montana. Is this the name of a former or current NBA player or a famous person from Cleveland? The name is Colson Baker. Colson Baker.
I'm going to go with famous person from Cleveland.
Victory!
That was a good choice, sir, because Colson Baker, also known as Machine Gun Kelly, hails from Cleveland, Ohio.
I've never known what his actual name is. There we go. That's good to know.
It's the power of Google, my friend. All right, 1 for 1. We're off to a good start. I don't know how many consecutive that is. Is that 7 consecutive? Who knows? We'll have to go back and we'll have to hire a stat boy and figure that out. But anyway, name number 2. Is this the name of a famous person or Cleveland celebrity, if you will? The name is Alan Ruck.
Oh, man. I'm gonna go with Cleveland.
Victory!
Yes, sir. Alan Ruck is an actor, hails from Cleveland, Ohio, has been in a bunch of TV shows and movies, but he's most famous for playing Ferris Bueller's best friend Cameron Fry in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Okay, 2 for 2, Montana. Let's keep it continuous, Sammy Sosa once said. Name number 3. Is this an NBA player or famous Clevelander? The name is Bob Sura. Bob Sura.
I'm gonna switch over to NBA basketball player.
Victory!
Johnny Drama likes it too. Bobby Sura, drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers, played 5 seasons in Cleveland from 1995 to 2000, 11 NBA seasons overall. So, yeah, doing well. 3 for 3, folks. Could we have a second consecutive 5 for 5? Name number 4, NBA player or famous person from Cleveland. The name is John Williams. John Williams.
I'm gonna go back to Cleveland.
And ladies and gentlemen, the streak is over, but it was fun while it lasted. John Hot Rod Williams was a longtime forward for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Played in the NBA from 1986 through 1999. Once traded for some stupid reason to Phoenix for Dan Marley. Sorry, Josh, I had to throw that in there. 3 for 4, Montana. All right, let's close it out with a good one here. Is this the name of an NBA player or Cleveland celebrity, famous Clevelander? The name is Ira Newble.
Famous Clevelander.
Ira Newble, former Cleveland Cavalier, was a member of the Cavaliers team. I think he might have even started in the NBA Finals in LeBron James's first run in 2007 to the NBA Finals, where they lost to the San Antonio Spurs 4 games.
Not quite as good as last week, but
well, all good things must come to an end, but you're going to get another shot at it next week. So I think you might have gotten 8 or 9 consecutive, which might be a new record on NBA Player. So well done. We'll hit it again next week. All right, folks. Well, I think now we'll take a minute here and pause for a special word from the Yankee and the Brit.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jay from Yankee and the Brit telling you to come over and check out our shows. The Yankee and the Brit Sports Talk, Well Beyond the Arc, the Markout Podcast, Flagrant and Foul, Real Talk with Jay, and MMA Underground Weekly at YouTube/The Yankee and the Brit. Deuces.
Thanks, Jay. Yep, be sure to check those out, folks. All right. Well, I don't know if we have another blockbuster trade left. Kevin Durant staying. That's the first time we mentioned Kevin Durant today. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving seem to be staying in Brooklyn. Russell Westbrook was seen practicing at the Lakers facility with Patrick Beverley, of all people. So he might be staying. I don't know if we have any more big moves, so I think it's kind of safe. Dare I say it's safe that we start looking at this season's NBA offseason. Who are the winners? Who are the losers? And it was a crazy offseason. A lot more drama than crazy, but Montana, just off the top of your head, we'll start going through teams here, but just off the top of your head, who are some of the teams that you feel are winners in this year's offseason?
One of the big ones for me was the Hawks. I think that they are a team that had really good success 2 postseasons ago. Trae Young showed out. The team looked good. Didn't have a lot of success last season, but I think they are bouncing back, and getting a player like Murray is huge. I think that matching him with Trae Young and having those 2 players play together is going to be an underrated, not very long. It won't be underrated long. I think it's underrated right now, but that's an underrated duo. I think that is going to be a dangerous duo that's going to torch teams. So I think one of the teams that, in my opinion, did the best in the offseason would definitely be the Hawks. The Cavs are up there as well, obviously. I think that they are a team that very well boosted themselves to the next level, and I think that they will be a team that we definitely will be talking about. And then right up there with them, I've got the Bucks And it's not because of any big moves they made, but because they retained a lot of their big playoff contender, playoff run players. I think that the Bucks will be a team that they did good because they didn't do a lot. They didn't make huge moves. They very well could have maybe pursued, and maybe they did. And of course, there's all those trades that fall through. But I think the Bucks really are content and very, they look forward. They like that group of guys they have. They really like that team, and I think that it really represents Milwaukee well. So I think that we are going to see a pretty dangerous bounce back Milwaukee team because they retained and because they did a good job keeping some of those crucial players. So those would be those top 3 teams that I think did the best for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you on 3 of those teams. I'm going to add one more team in there. I'm going to share my thoughts on the teams you mentioned here, but just going through the list of all the offseason transactions, I was surprised that the Denver Nuggets actually had a low-key decent offseason. They added Bruce Brown, who had a coming out party in the first round for the Brooklyn Nets because the Boston Celtics decided that Kevin Durant nor Kyrie Irving was going to beat him, so they're going to try to let Bruce Brown beat him. And Bruce Brown took advantage. I mean, he showed what he can do. Underrated defender, actually underrated on the offensive end. Signed a Midas contract with the Denver Nuggets, who are even deeper now. They did trade away, the Nuggets did, Will the Thrill Barton and Monte Morris to the Washington Wizards. But who they pick up? They picked up, or my notes, Bruce Bowen, DeAndre Jordan as a backup center to Nikola Jokic, which, you're not going to have to play him that much because Jokic is going to be playing 35 to 38 minutes a night anyway. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope they picked up, a good outside shooter, is going to fill that Will Barton role as well. And the reason why I think the Nuggets are going to be even better is because they get Jamal Murray back from the ACL injury. I don't know what's going on with Michael Porter Jr., but if his back holds up, that's another piece that you're adding back. They were a 6-7 seed in last year's playoffs without Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Getting those two back is just like getting 2 great offseason moves. Getting this depth on your bench, I thought, was key for the Nuggets. Now, does that put the Nuggets above the Phoenix Suns, the Memphis Grizzlies, Golden State Warriors? I don't know, but it makes them better than they were last year. But I'll also echo your thoughts on the Cavs. I mean, we talked about Donovan Mitchell at length at the beginning of the show, so we don't need to keep talking there. But originally, I thought it was going to be the Boston Celtics as the overall winner of the offseason. They got Malcolm Brogdon from the Indiana Pacers for literally a copy machine, a stapler, a couple paper clips, 3 pieces of paper, and some chewed gum. Literally, the Boston Celtics didn't give up anything. They gave up some bench guys, some G League guys, a second-round draft pick, and Daniel Tice. I mean, it was a steal what they were able to do to add Malcolm Brogdon, who was one of the top players in the Pacers, a potential 50-40-90 guy, 50% from the field, 40% from 3, 90% from the free throw line. And he might be not even start for them. He's going to be coming off the bench. And also, being able to sign Danilo Gallinari, this is why I thought the Celtics originally won the offseason. Getting Danilo Gallinari and having him come off your bench as your 7th or 8th guy, a stretch 4, just making that already deep Boston Celtics team even deeper was just crazy to me without even the Celtics giving up much. But then Danilo Gallinari tore up his knee, and unfortunately he's probably going to be out for most of the year with a torn ACL. But still, getting Malcolm Brogdon for the Celtics, huge. Mm-hmm. The Hawks, DeJounte Murray, him and Trey, I want to see him and Trey Young. That could be the all-petty team, the all, I don't even know what to call him, man. Just seeing DeJounte Murray ball out in these pro-ams and kind of letting his hair down, so to speak, and showing a little bit of his personality, getting away from San Antonio. He might be putting a target on his back with some of his antics, but that's going to be one hell of a backcourt. And they still have John Collins, whose name was in trade rumors. I thought for sure he was going to get moved. They still have some good pieces down there in Atlanta. But yeah, I think those are my 4 biggest winners.
And yeah, no, I had the Celtics, but again, that injury kind of takes them out for me because that was one of their biggest, if not their biggest offseason move. So I still think that they had a productive offseason, and once they can obviously get him back and get, him moving, which obviously I don't see him coming back during the season, but sometimes they fast track stuff. I don't see the Celtics being an organization that would push that though. They're not an organization that needs him to be successful. It's just it boosts them. It gives them the boost they need to not lose to the Warriors in the finals.
And Gallinari is a vet. He's not going to rush himself back. He's torn ACL before. He's been through this, unfortunately. So speedy recovery to him, but we'll see what happens. All right, winners. I do want to get into the losers of the offseason, but I want to throw a third category in here. And I don't know what to name it, so I'm just going to whatever is on my mind. I can't decide if I want to name it the meh as a team of the offseason, the what happened, or what were you thinking team of the offseason. So maybe we just go into the losers of the offseason first. Who do you think were some of the teams that did the worst? Or yeah, let's just call them the losers of the offseason. Let's say it for what it's worth.
So my top pick might surprise people, and I'm not saying this because I'm mad that they won it all. I'm saying this because I truly think this. I think the Golden State Warriors had a pretty not great offseason. I think that they lost / gave up some of their best role players that helped boost them to a title. And let's be honest, Klay Thompson came back from an injury, but I don't think he played that well. I don't think he had a fantastic offseason. Did he play great and contribute? Absolutely. But, Klay Thompson coming back from an injury, he might never be completely the same. Draymond Green hasn't contributed as much as he used to, and he's always been a player that you really have to look hard sometimes to see what he contributes, and that's always been the case. You really have to go into the stats on a deeper level to see the impact that Draymond Green has, because even if he's only scoring 6 points, look at how many steals, look at the rebounds. He is doing a lot, but that has decreased.
How many kicks to the balls of opposing players and getting away with it?
That should be added to the stat line. There should be a special stat line just for Draymond Green highlighting those parts of his career. But the thing is, Steph is going to be Steph. But I think to be a successful team that continues their reign, losing a Gary Payton Jr. Now, again, Gary Payton II, or Gary Payton Jr., I don't know if it's the second. Second, there we go. Gary Payton II.
Gary Payton's kid, the name he named after him.
You don't want to lose a player like that. You don't want to lose. They lost Juan
Toscano Anderson to your Lakers.
Huge loss. Huge gain for my Lakers, but a huge loss for that team. So even though it's role players, the fact that they lost these guys that I think they easily could have had. And then you look at Wiseman. Wiseman is still out. There's no real progression timeline for Wiseman that I've seen. So if they were getting Wiseman back and he was in the projected future, then it's okay to lose those role players because you're adding an animal and a monster. And losing some of those role players, you have a really talented young player that could be one of the best. But he's not coming back. So why would you risk it? Why would you not prioritize bringing them back? The other flip side of that is I'm sure those the other teams may have been able to offer them more. I'm sure that Gary Payton II would not have gotten the same offer, and maybe the Warriors even gave it a shot. But I just feel like the Warriors losing some of those key pieces could end up hurting them, because you are not a great team unless you have solid role players. And especially with aging stars like Draymond, Klay, and Steph, they're not the young guns they were even 2, 3, 4 years ago. You need to have younger role players to match up with them. So are they, damned? Are they a team that I think won't be a contender? No, they're still going to be up there, but I think they lost the offseason because of some of those players they gave up. Another one that should be unsurprising is the Lakers. I was watching this whole Lakers offseason, okay, we're going to go for this guy. We're going to go for this guy. Oh, wait, no, we're going to go for this guy. And that it's just the people that we seem to target and go after were not the players that I would have picked. Obviously, Kyrie Irving was out when he decided not to leave. Obviously, or when they couldn't figure a trade out. There are levels to it. But the Lakers could have and should have maybe gone after some other players than who they went for. And maybe it'll end up panning out and a Patrick Beverley experiment will work. I don't see any reason that it wouldn't at least potentially be successful in the short term success of the Lakers. But Montrezl Harrell just signed to the 76ers. I would have loved to have Harrell back. I would have loved. Montrezl Harrell over Thomas Bryant, 150%.
Sure.
Even if you could probably still get both of them. I just think the Lakers were too dormant and they were too timid and they didn't attack the offseason like I would have expected them to. I'm getting a little heated. I'll save that for the Lakers specific show because I could go on and on. But I am a little bit heated. I do think some of their pickups could be somewhat successful, and I think that we will see a better Lakers than we did last season, but I don't think that's because of their offseason. And then the third one for me is Portland. Portland, to me, needed to make bigger moves than what they did because you have a Damian Lillard who is committed to you. He has told you, I am staying here. I don't care. I will stay here as long as it takes. And you don't have anyone to match him up with. You lost the only person that was kind of with him and was kind of helping him, and I don't think they have a team. So I think they should have. I think they should have gone after Carmelo Anthony. Let's get Carmelo Anthony back in Portland. Let's go after some of these vets. Let's match them up with Lillard. Let's see what we can do. And I just don't think the Trailblazers really made any big moves. I don't think they were the team that I don't think they were the worst. I still say that's the Warriors, but I've got the Trailblazers right up there because I don't think you gave Damian Lillard anything like you should have. Your main goal should be put someone next to Damian Lillard that he can rely on, and I don't think they did that.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree on the Warriors. I'll get to the Blazers in a second. I don't think I understand where you're coming from on the Warriors. Yeah, the Warriors lost GP3. Now you have me doubting what his name is, but Gary Payton's kid, Gary Payton, solid player, was not expected to be a contributor last year's Warriors team. That's going to be a lot. They couldn't keep everybody. I think the fact that they haven't moved Jordan Poole, they haven't moved any of their core. I didn't know about Wiseman if he had a setback. I'm expecting him to be back, but I mean, for the most part, they basically lost Juan Toscano Anderson, who wasn't getting much playing time towards the end with the Warriors anyway. Damian Lee, I don't remember the last time I saw him on the court for the Warriors last year. And then, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Gary Payton, Toscano Anderson, Damian Lee. Oh, those are the guys. Surprised about the Looney signing, but the Warriors can still bring somebody like a Carmelo Anthony because they've lost Otto Porter Jr. to Toronto. Random, but his wife's from Toronto, so good for him. They lost Belitza, so they still have a couple spots on their roster to fill out for a minimum. A bunch of different veterans out there that can contribute, that they can pick up. So the offseason's not done yet, but I'll have to disagree about the Warriors losing the offseason. The Blazers, on the other hand, I feel like they made moves to make moves, but I couldn't make sense of those. Jeremy Grant, solid player, but does that replace CJ McCollum? They did pick up Gary Payton Jr. second, 3, whatever his name is, solid. But other than that, meh, right? My biggest loser of the NBA offseason is the Miami Heat. And the reason for that is they didn't do anything. I went through the list of transactions other than drafting Nikola Jovic, not to be confused with the Joker Nikola Jokic in the first round of the NBA draft. They literally did not do anything, which is uncharacteristic of Pat Riley. Now, granted, Pat Riley has tried to make some big moves the last few years, ever since they had the big three: LeBron, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade down there. There are the Kevin Durant rumors. Kevin Durant's still in Brooklyn. There are the Donovan Mitchell rumors. No Donovan Mitchell. And on top of that, he's got the reigning sixth man of the year, Tyler Hero, asking for max money and extension, which, I don't know about you, I don't think Tyler Hero is a max player. Good player, not a max player. That's a type of signing that's going to set your franchise back a few years. So to me, the biggest loser is the Miami Heat, but there's other losers. We don't discriminate here at Well Beyond the Arc. We try to spread the wealth. I'm still scratching my head at the San Antonio Spurs. They traded away DeJounte Murray, first-time All-Star last year, great pickup for Atlanta, and they didn't get back much. They didn't get back anything. They got back Danilo Gallinari and then turned around and bought him out. Not sure what's going on in San Antonio. Pop's on his last couple of years here. That's not the way to send him out. So I thought they did Pop dirty there with that trade. The Indiana Pacers, again, that Malcolm Brogdon trade for office supplies, I don't know what was going on there. They did pick up Benedict Mathurin from Arizona. Okay, fine. But other than that, I couldn't tell you. Him and Tyrese Halliburton. I don't know who else is on the Pacers. Miles Turner's still there. Excuse me. So I'd have the Indiana Pacers as a loser the offseason. But the second biggest loser I would have is the Charlotte Hornets. Charlotte Hornets not only fired James Borrego, who was teetering, they failed to bring in a coach, somebody exciting to replace him. Instead, they brought back a coach that they had a few years ago in Steve Clifford. So the coach, meh, right? Montrezl Harrell, let him walk. Now, granted, he had some legal issues that now are, subsided, I guess we'll say. Ended up reuniting with Doc Rivers in Philadelphia. They lose Montrezl Harrell. Big loss for the Hornets. There's also the Miles Bridges situation, which, don't know much about what's going on there, but that's a borderline all-star who may not be playing anytime soon. But on top of that, they didn't pick up anybody. And you have a budding star on LaMelo Ball who, granted, you have his bird rights. You'll be able to resign him to an extension, but he might be the next guy that wants out. You have the best draft pick that's happened to you in quite some time, and you can't surround it with talent. The Hornets the last couple of years were in the play-in. I don't even see them sniffing the play-in this year unless they do something. So those are my biggest losers of the NBA offseason.
And no, those are definitely big teams. I mean, obviously, when we think about losers, teams like the Kings didn't make any. I mean, the Kings and the Knicks, you almost can't even talk about because it's almost like every season is a losing off season for them. Every off season, they don't make the right moves. The moves they do make, especially the Knicks. The Knicks are going to forever be stamped the off season losers to me until they make those big deals. And remember that. I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but when they were talking about we're getting Zion, we're getting they didn't get anybody. The Knicks have gotten almost nobody that they've thrown around the last few seasons. So the Knicks, you obviously didn't have a very good offseason. I do think that RJ Barrett, extent. I think that's big. I think that RJ Barrett
That was the right move.
He's a bright spot, and we have to highlight the bright spots. And I think that was a brighter spot than what New York has seen, to see a player that they drafted want to stay there and keep playing for them. We haven't seen that. So that's huge. I think that's a bright spot. And also the fact that they're always the offseason losers is why I didn't really think of them as losers. But the Pacers, for where they were, they keep on falling. And I've got a buddy who's a pretty big Pacers fan, and we used to talk a lot of smack, but I just don't think there's going to be much to talk about this season. And maybe that's on both ends. I don't know. Maybe that's Lakers and Pacers. I'm not sure. But the Pacers are just a team that any bright spot that they do still have, I don't think they're going to utilize correctly because, Miles Turner I'm sure he wants out. I'm sure he's ready for the next. I'm sure he's ready.
I think he's on his last year of his deal. So it's either he wants out or he'll another year until he can leave on his own.
We'll take him. The Lakers were, and that's one move I thought might happen. I thought the Lakers might have I thought there could, so that was one move that I was disappointed not to see happen for everybody involved. Get the Pacers some young guys or some vets or some picks or something for Miles Turner so you can start getting back up to where you at least sort of were before. So lots of losers, lots of winners. Some teams that just really didn't do much and didn't lose any gain too much. There's some teams that just kind of were there.
Let's call it the meh teams, right? I'll start by throwing my Bulls in there. I mean, solid off season, but at the same time, it was kind of meh, right? They did address one need in signing a backup center, which I think is an underrated signing Andre Drummond. Great rebounder, can't shoot to save his life, but rebounder, shot blocker. He came out and said he thought he was the best rebounder of all time, so I'm a little scared about that. But picking up Goran Dragic, who hopefully his knee injury that he suffered in the Eurobasket qualifiers isn't too serious, but solid backup point guard. I did think they need to pick up another shooter. This Dalen Terry kid they picked up from Arizona in the draft seems to be really hungry. I'm excited about him all of a sudden, but they really didn't do much in an Eastern Conference that is improving by the second. I mean, if I had to write out, who I think is going to make the playoffs 1 through 8, unfortunately, I have my Bulls at 8-9 right now. So yeah, I mean, so I have my beloved Chicago Bulls as a meh team. Believe it or not, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves as a meh team, even though they added a huge name in Rudy Gobert. I'm just curious to see how that's going to work out with him and Cat on the defensive end. For sure, it will help out. On the offensive end, maybe they'll create enough spacing so all Gobert has to do is go get rebounds and dunk and Put those back in. Excuse me. That's how much the Timberwolves are boring me this offseason. I'm yawning through it. Austin Rivers, meh to the Timberwolves. Same with Kyle Anderson. Solid role players, vets. That's going to help the young guys. I do think the Timberwolves are going to be better, but it's still kind of in that meh offseason. The 76ers picking up PJ Tucker. It's a little bit better than meh, but you got PJ Tucker and Montrezl Harrell, excuse me. They become tougher, right? Also getting DeAnthony Melton from the Grizzlies. I think the Sixers got better. It's not overly exciting to me. You mentioned the Sacramento Kings. I actually thought they had a bit of an underrated offseason, believe it or not. I just don't know what they're trying to accomplish in Sacramento. They have a whole bunch of guards now. They picked up, and then that trade, somehow the Kings got involved in the three-way trade with the San Antonio Spurs and the Atlanta Hawks. But Kevin Huerter goes to the Kings, which I know the Hawks like Kevin Huerter, but he's now a Sacramento King. They picked up your former Laker boy, Malik Monk, who decided to sign with Sacramento, which I don't understand that. But hey, more power to him. He got paid. But their biggest offseason pickup, I think, to me, is the number 4 pick in the draft. I think he was a number 4 pick in the draft, but Iowa's Keegan Murray. He looked like a player in Summer League. He didn't play too much after the first few games, but he looked like a player. He looked like a 3 guy that they can build around. I think finally the Sacramento Kings, other than Fox, they got a draft pick right. But I just don't know what they're trying to do in Sacramento. Now, they got Domantas Sabonis from the Pacers for basically nothing a little while before. So we'll see. Maybe the Sacramento Kings will be better than most people think, but I don't think they're going to be making the playoffs. And another team that I put under the meh category, last one I'll bring up, is the Dallas Mavericks. Mavericks with Luka Doncic got all the way to the West Finals. And what did they do to reload? Well, they lost Jalen Brunson to the Knicks, which good for the Knicks for signing, but that $105 million for Jalen Brunson, no thank you. But you reload with JaVale McGee and Christian Wood. Christian Wood, talented player, was once a 2010 player for the Houston Rockets, but was that putting up good stats for bad teams and did the same thing with the Pistons? Or is this going to be a legitimate pickup for the Mavericks? Those are your 2 offseason acquisitions, and you lost, a secondary ball handler in Jalen Brunson. That's not going to help Luka Doncic and make him happy. So those are my meh teams.
Definitely, and those were all my picks as well. The one that I also thought was kind of a meh team was the Clippers. I think that they had a great pickup in John Wall, and seeing him be really open and honest about these last few years with injuries and mental health and losing family members, I think a John Wall that's in a good headspace and healthy physically and mentally is going to be an animal. I think we are going to see him have a second stint. I think we're going to see a D Rose type of comeback. We're going to see a consistent player come back. And now I do think he will be have a little more in the tank than D Rose. I don't think he's been bumped and bruised as much as D Rose has. I don't know if any NBA player has had the luck that D Rose has had. So I would say that he's going to come back a little stronger. But other than John Wall, I wasn't really impressed. And I think after the really unsuccessful, not incredibly impressive season that the Clippers had, obviously Kawhi was out, Paul George had his thing, whatever, but you need to get those big name players. You need to go after bigger name players. You need to make bigger things happen, because the battle for LA, I mean, it's not going to be much of a battle anymore, I don't think, because we have some stars, but it's not the star power we even had 2 seasons ago on these 2 teams. So I think that the Clippers had a little bit of a better offseason than the Lakers, because a player like John Wall, just John Wall, if all the Lakers would have gotten was John Wall, I would be happy. But the Lakers got a bunch of other players, a bunch of role players, if you will even call some of them that, and said these are what we want. But I think quality over quantity. So I would say that the Clippers definitely, if we're going about LA teams, did better than the Lakers, but I still have them as meh. I expect them to try to make some bigger moves, especially with how unsuccessful they were last season.
No, agreed. I mean, look, John Wall looks good in those offseason workouts. He seems hungry, but I've seen that story before. You mentioned Derrick Rose, same thing there. I mean, best of luck to him. I think if he can stay healthy, that'll be an interesting addition for the Clippers in the Battle of LA. So Well, we're coming up to time here on Well Beyond the Arc, but these aren't our only projects that we work on. Montana, you want to tell the listeners about what you have in store and the other podcasts you've been working on?
Yeah, definitely. So I have a Lakers podcast that I plan on dropping maybe yet this week. It's going to be, I think it's going to be weekly. It might be bi-weekly, but I will probably just plug it on here. The first episode I'm going to try to drop pretty close to when we drop our episode so that I can kind of get it rolling like that. But it'll just be a Lakers show. It'll probably just be 30 to 45 minutes weekly, an hour to an hour and a half if it's bi-weekly, and just going over updates and maybe having some fun different categories and topics. So just stay tuned for that, and that'll be dropping very soon.
Very nice. Be sure to check that out. Well, I mentioned it before, but my website, my blog site, the sportspageblog.com, posting a bunch of different topics, blog topics. Mentioned the last post was about trader Danny Ainge. I hope he's not dating. I hear he's married. If trader Danny Ainge is up to his old tricks and fleeced the Utah Jazz, be sure to check out that article. And there's about 40 other articles up there, in addition to some exciting stuff coming soon. Just piloted a live trivia game. Might be adding some trivia here coming up here later this month. So just be on the lookout for that. Well, we appreciate everyone joining us here on Well Beyond the Arc. Be back to you. We'll try to nail down this new time if we can keep going forward, but we'll keep you posted on a new consistent time. And keep an eye. The college recruiting season is underway. Bronny James to Ohio State. For all the LeBron haters, he's not going anywhere anytime soon. And now that his sons are coming up, neither are they. Get a boatload of that. So long, everybody.